I'm Nigel, and I got no idea what I'm doing. Today, we're giving the brakes a bit of a birthday. After successfully procrastinating for months, I'd run out of reasons not to tackle the job of overhauling the brakes. The rear left brake had been slowly leaking, and I decided that rather than fill it up with brake fluid every now and then, I needed to sort it out once and for all and get those seals replaced. And I figured while I was doing that one, I may as well bite the bullet and do all four corners. With the car safely off the ground, it was time to take off the wheel and see what I had in front of me. Behold my foe, the first of many hydraulic brake calipers. The next thing to do was remove the brake line and then plug it up to keep the brake fluid leakage to a minimum. Clamping on some rubber pads with multi-grips should do the job. Next, the delicate task of removing the bolts that hold the brake caliper onto the hub. You know the saying, don't force it, just get a bigger hammer. Genius. With the caliper removed, it was time to head to the Dexter-style workbench. Here, I needed to clean the assembly before starting to take it all apart. These brake pads seem to have plenty of meat on them, but I'll replace them anyway while I'm here. I need to completely disassemble the brakes and remove all the old seals. Next, I need to remove the brake pistons, and according to the internet, there's a trick to that. Nice. Although I'm glad I didn't have my finger in there. That worked. This inner seal is probably the most important one. It looks fine, but I'll be replacing it anyway. Then, more cleaning. Next up, the piston seal goes in, which has to be seated properly. And then the piston dust seal, which is pretty tricky as it needs to seat into a slot inside the cylinder. Then the pad holder gets bolted back on. And the clips inserted, before the pad mounting points are lubricated and the pads are inserted into the holder. Then the caliper assembly slides onto the top slide pin and closes around the two pads.
Why you like this?
Once the lower slide pin is bolted in and everything is torqued up correctly, the brake line can be reconnected to the caliper. And then it's on to the next one. It's the same thing again. Remove the brake line, clamp it off, fight the mounting bolts, and then remove the assembly. And then some cleaning and disassembly, and then some more cleaning, and then lubrication and reassembly.
Now push it down. Down you go. Just push it through. Yeah. Okay. It's a boy.
Assembly is the reverse of disassembly. Nice. That's the fronts done. Now, to the backs. These two are a bit trickier because of the handbrake. Don't worry, you'll see. Unbolt, remove, clean, and clean, and clean, and hit with hammer. And then try to work out how the hell it all works.
Interesting. They are so dead. What's that? Than I was expecting.
There's a lot more to take apart here, and the order is important.
Is anything actually happening?
What you're not seeing is me frequently giving up and watching people on YouTube who do know what they are doing trying to tackle this same job.
Boing.
So, more disassembly and more watching YouTube.
Do not move.
I stand on the shoulders of giants. Next up, I lubricate all the moving parts, ready for assembly. First, the handbrake lever. Then, the adjusting bolt, which has an O-ring fitted and needs to be lubricated before it is installed into the back of the cylinder. This is held in by a circlip. And then the piston goes in, and it needs to be run back into the cylinder by turning the adjusting bolt via its adjuster. Up next is the spring for the handbrake lever. And then the two slide pin boots, which get a heap of lube as well. With that all done, the assembly can go back onto the car. And then the handbrake cable is reconnected to the lever and bolted in.
Where are you, Hall? Are you too good for your hole?
And everything's torqued up. Nice. We're 3/4 the way there. This is the one that's been leaking, and subsequently, it's kinda nasty in there.
Man, for something covered in oil, you think it would be easier to get out. Ah, yummy.
Anyway, off it comes, and then it gets a serious clean. I should have had these on earlier. Oops. So, more cleaning, and then we can start on disassembly. Yuck. This slide pin seems to be covered in mud. I think it's a mix of brake fluid and water. Brake fluid attracts water, and I think this has caused the pin to be badly corroded. I'll have to replace that pretty soon. More cleaning, and then we can get to pulling it apart. Strangely, these parts do not seem to be well lubricated. I think the leaking brake fluid may have washed the lube away. And it's all in bits.
Okay, so how does this all work? There's your caliper. That's where the brake pads go in. Brake pads slide on there and there. Your disc is here, so when we close this, brake pads are on either side of the disc. The disc spins around, the piston comes out here, pushes this brake pad against the disc, slows your car down. Okay, great. But how does all that work? This is the piston. This goes inside here, and when you press your foot on the brake, this squeezes out, pushing that pad. But what's all this bullshit? Alright, that screws in the back there, like so. Then you've got this little guy here, the hot dog, sits in there, and this lever is attached to the mechanical handbrake or emergency brake. So when this turns, the geometry in there pushes this forward in the piston slightly. So you've got two different methods of pushing this piston. You've got the hydraulics, which is your brake fluid that comes in there, squeezes your pads together, and you've got the mechanical action of the handbrake or emergency brake, pushes the piston, squeezes the pads together. That might be how it works. I don't know. Why would you ask me?
Okay, with the spontaneous educational content now over, we are back just in time for the lubrication and assembly. It's obviously getting to me. I'm starting to talk to myself.
Get it straight. Get it past that second seal. Good. And then, if we're extremely lucky, it'll engage and we can wind it in.
Eagle-eyed viewers may notice I put this back in slightly differently. No reason, but I think this way, more like I did on the fronts, is just a little bit easier. So, for the last time, brake things get bolted on. Fitted. And torqued. Alright, we're nearly done. The next thing is to bleed the brake system. This means the brake fluid reservoir has to be topped up and a volunteer required to assist.
Up.
This process is about removing air bubbles from the brake lines. It's important that the only thing in those lines is the brake fluid.
Go down.
Air, unlike brake fluid, can compress, which can make the brakes feel squishy and can badly affect braking performance.
Down.
With the bubbles removed, the very last thing to do is get the wheels on and all torqued up correctly. Then, after totally not 4 days edited to look like one, it's time to carefully test the brakes and the handbrake before going for a cautious road test.
Well, plot twist. The brakes work and I'm still alive. Job's finished. We'll see you next time. Bow-num. Bow-num.